It's essentially, this was a concoction by the Pentagon and especially the administration because they needed a legal rationale for carrying out what amounts to an unlawful policy. The open-ended bombing of Iraq and Syria against the Islamic State can't happen without congressional authorization. Only Congress can declare war. It can't happen without the UN Security Council. That didn't happen. So what the Obama administration needed, again, let's remember that they said the Islamic State poses no imminent danger to the American people. What they needed was a danger that did pose an imminent danger to the American people, because then under the condition of imminent danger, the president can say he has the emergency power to carry out the war. So the Khorasan grouping became a very convenient but essentially necessary part of the propaganda justifying an illegal war with the premise of legality, again, by an imminent threat against a group no one, as the journalist said, had ever heard of.
Right. Or might not be at all, okay? So when you attack Syria, you need some sort of legal defense to do it. Now, I know in America nobody cares. We just start wars, you don't go get congressional authorization, etc. But if you start a war with no justification at all, it is a war crime, and you could have trouble with the United Nations at some point. It might hamper President Obama's vacation plans in Switzerland at some point, right? So he needs a technical, legal reason to be able to bomb Syria. Because he has said over and over again, even though we're going to bomb ISIS, ISIS is not an immediate threat to America. President Obama is on the record saying that multiple times. So they need a quote-unquote immediate threat. So right as we're about to bomb them, all of a sudden here comes this group, Khorasan, that nobody'd ever heard of. Oh, and guess what they are, guys? Turns out they're an immediate threat. The Khorasan militants did not go to Syria principally to fight the government of President Bashar Assad, U.S. officials say. That's the important part, U.S. officials say. Instead, they were sent by al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri to recruit Europeans and Americans whose passports allowed them to board a U.S.-bound airliner with less scrutiny from security officials. Okay, let's pause and analyze that for a second. Even before doubt set in on this story. Really? You need to go to Syria to make bombs? Couldn't you make bombs anywhere? Okay, fine. Maybe there's less scrutiny in making the bomb in Syria. Okay. It's easier to get on a plane to America from Syria? Who writes that down? So, but it was a U.S. official. They gave a leak to the Associated Press, so the Associated Press must run with it as if it's true. The planning from the Khorasan group suggests at least an aspiration to launch more coordinated and larger attacks on the West in the style of the 9/11 attacks from 2001. See what he did there? At least an aspiration. Aspiration means total bullshit. They once thought about it, and they're aspiring to do that. Have they planned to do it? Do they have any bombs? Do they take any real action? No, but they have an aspiration to do it. But in that same sentence, 9/11! 9/11! To do things worse than 9/11. By the way, the same reporter at Daily Beast, Eli Lake, later in the piece talked about how they might be connected to Iran. He said that's a surprising twist. Yeah, that would be a surprising twist because Iran is Shia and the Nusra Front and al-Qaeda are Sunni, and they despise each other even more than they despise us. Yeah, that would be surprising. That's part of what makes it totally untrue. I don't know if he does propaganda on purpose or he's just a tool and doesn't know a thing about foreign policy, which he writes about. Okay, so now we go to the culprit behind Khorasan, the leader of Khorasan. The official said, this is in the New York Times, said that the group is led by Muhsin al-Fadli, a senior al-Qaeda operative who, according to the State Department, was so close to bin Laden that he was among a small group of people who knew about September 11, 2001 attacks before they were launched. And another piece of reporting, another outlet said that he was one of the financiers behind 9/11. Interesting, because I read in the article, now The Intercept didn't point this out, this is part of the reading I did last week, that Fadli was now dead, you know, he's one of the guys we bombed, at 33 years old. Let's do a quick math on that. So on 9/11 of 2001, when he was financing and leading the 9/11 attacks against us, he would have been around 20 years old. Did no one think, That's curious. I mean, I suppose you could have a 20-year-old financing 9/11, working closely with Al-Qaeda and bin Laden being one of the top leaders, but a guy we'd hardly ever heard about, and certainly not ever in relationship to a group called Khorasan. Yes, there'd been some reward on his head back in 2012, but now all of a sudden, one of the masterminds of 9/11 at 20. And by the way, if you were financing it and planning it, you would have been even younger when you were doing that before 9/11, right? At the age of 15, this guy already had loads of cash from his lawn mowing job in Afghanistan, and he was financing this group. He's dangerous. He's the leader of Khorasan. What other bullshit do you have for me? Okay? Look at how miserable the mainstream press is in America. All these outlets, CBS, New York Times, Associated Press. Oh, I have an inside source. I have an inside source. Yes, sir. Let me write it down. Yes. Oh, okay, I will do stenography for you. I am the best stenographer there ever was. Oh, this Khorasan is so dangerous. That was worse than 9/11, worse than ISIS. Jesus Christ. Okay, so what does President Obama do? After they leak all this stuff, he says, once again, it must be clear to anyone who would plot against America and try to do Americans harm that we will not tolerate safe havens for terrorists who threaten our people. Now, why do I give you that quote? Because that's President Obama saying, see, I attacked Syria because they were going to they had a safe haven there and they were going to attack America. Luckily, now they're not going to attack America because we hit the group that we had not talked about before. Because ISIS, we already told you, was not going to hit America. So, but this new guys, they were going to hit America, and we got it. All right, now, all of a sudden, after we do the bombings, after all this is reported in the headlines, they then whisper to the press, we didn't really mean it. Here, let me give you the quotes. Then CNN turns around a couple of days later. The official said the group posed an imminent threat. But another U.S. official later said the threat was not imminent in the sense that there were no known targets or attacks expected in the next few weeks. When there are no known targets or attacks, yeah, that would not be imminent. That would be the opposite of imminent. Okay? We're not anywhere near done yet. Then a U.S. counterterrorism official says, Khorasan has the desire to attack, though we're not sure their capabilities match their desire. Okay, if you haven't figured out by now that this is totally made up by our intelligence community, by our government, you're not paying attention, okay? It's not that there aren't guys down there who are bad guys. It's not that al-Fadi didn't do something wrong. God knows, so you'd have to prove it, but of course we never do anything like that, right? It's not that he's not part of Al-Qaeda, but is there a group called Khorasan that was actually planning to imminently attack the United States? Fuck no, there isn't. No, there isn't, okay? I'm gonna show you more in a second. Imminently attack, they had a desire to attack. Do you know how many people you can point to in Syria and Iraq that have a desire to attack us? It's time to the Associated Press. The guys who were the first quotes I read you about, oh my God, they're coming. Now listen to what they say. Senior U.S. officials offered a more nuanced picture Thursday of the threat they believe is posed by an al-Qaeda cell in Syria targeted at military strikes this week, even as they defended the decision to attack the militants. Now here's my favorite part. James Comey, the FBI director, and Rear Admiral John Kirby, the Pentagon spokesman, each acknowledged that U.S. did not have precise intelligence about where or when the cell, known as the Khorasan Group, would attempt to strike a Western target. Kirby, briefing reporters at the Pentagon, said, I don't know that we can pin down to a day, a month, a week, or 6 months. We can have this debate about whether it was valid to hit them or not, or whether it was too soon or too late. We hit them. And I don't think we need to throw up a dossier here to prove that these are bad dudes. Oh, why didn't you just say so? Oh, they're bad dudes. Well, that's why we have a legal reason to go into Syria. Because we had to get the bad dudes. You don't need a dossier for that. It doesn't matter. We already hit them. We already killed them. What difference does it make anyway? They're already dead. But trust us, they have now been downgraded to bad dudes.